Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Flip Dot Show. It's your host with the most, King Truth, host of Bird, Benny Ball, the one with the word, the one with the flow, and we coming at you live. Hey, what time is it? Oh yeah, it is like 8:25, 8:38. My bad, y'all. Okay, so this gonna be Halloween movie reaction. Should be Flip Halloween movie reaction. The first episode, first installment. We're gonna be coming at you every day of the week in this month, doing a Halloween movie and reacting to these clips. You know, so uh, so yeah, y'all stay tuned. Appreciate everybody liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the notification bell so I know y'all there, so I can go 2 minutes in the air and like, comment, subscribe, share, man. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell their friend to tell their auntie to tap in, as well as follow me on Kick, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Rumble. Yeah, let's get it. This is gonna be, like I said, Rob Zombie. Did he ruin the Halloween front? Huh? Did he ruin the Halloween franchise? So we gonna react to this couple minutes of this documentary, how Rob Zombie destroyed the Halloween franchise. Let me know in the comments. Do you think that he made two good Halloweens? Do you think the first one was good? Did you think the second one was trash? Let me know. Let me know. And let's get it. Let's go.
Wow, a guy whose last name is Zombie. He must be super cool. Or not. I never fell for Rob Zombie. I never enjoyed his breed of trendy pop metal.
I think this guy's just a Rob Zombie hater, y'all, because he literally didn't even click anything yet. Talk about I always hated Rob Zombie, like. So I don't know. He might have a biased opinion. Let's see.
Nor did I completely accept his films. I never bought into his appearance, cool music videos, nor the merchandise he sold to MTV followers. Here, I aim to comment on Rob Zombie in regards to his filmmaking career. I also hope to expose him for the liar and traitor he is to the fans who worship him. Specifically, how he slumped so low as to destroy a classic horror franchise.
Oh, yeah. He's a hater, bro. I feel rage hate.
Give it up for rock and roll's finest, Rob Zombie.
I'm no music nut. I'm not an expert on metal, let alone music in general, nor am I here to argue that Rob Zombie's music is just hipster garbage. I do admit, however, that while growing up in a generation where his music was a piece of the soundtrack, I did find several of his tracks catchy. They sounded
All right. But when is he gonna talk about him ruining the Halloween franchise, sir? You over here listening to music that he done put out in the early '90s and shit that nobody even heard by Rob Zombie, critiquing everything in the video. All right.
as he intended them to sound, cool. But finding a few tunes catchy wasn't enough to make me like him or his music. There was just something more to Rob Zombie that I just didn't understand. At the time, it wasn't so much that I didn't like his music, but what he strived to represent. His last name of Zombie seemed to be a blatant attempt to appeal to trendy metal kids. I understand that Cummings isn't necessarily a cool last name to have, but he could have stuck with something that was a bit less cliche for a metal act. Perhaps I just didn't get it, but really, it didn't make a difference to me at the time. He seemed to be just another icon with a cool-ass name. Around 2001, while I was skimming through some horror-related message boards on the net, I remember coming across a link to Universal's promotional site for Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses. I had always heard rumors that he was making a very sick and twisted horror film. At first glance, I thought it was somehow related to a much earlier film of a very similar title, The House of Seven Corpses, but later did I realize that it was a completely different film with no relevance to the other. But despite the title ripoff and my dislike for his music, I was open-minded and decided to give the movie a chance.
Howdy, folks. You like blood, violence, freaks of nature?
To be completely honest, the trailer excited me. It appeared to be a throwback to the horror films of the 70s and 80s. Prior to House, there was an onslaught of glossy teen horror flicks such as Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. These films had known faces and were polished by Hollywood standards. At the time, I had grown to hate these films. They just didn't.
Alright. So you're gonna hate these films, right? But then you said, I like House of a Thousand Corpses. What's your like your rate from a 1 to 10 on House of a Thousand Corpses? Did you like that or you didn't like that? So like from a 1 to a 10. Huh?
Like 5, 6.
Yeah, that shit was trash, church. Nobody watched that shit. No, I would say if anything, he's more known for the what's that shit called? The Devil's Rejects or something like that. That movie's kind of well, I don't know. That movie's kind of trash too. I don't know. Rob Zombie's movies are just like acquired taste, bro. You could say, I guess. Yeah. Oh, they can even hear you, church. They can hear you. Go, yeah.
Yeah,
Say again.
yeah.
A little louder. No, not yeah, louder. Just say yeah. One time.
Yes.
feel real and I had trouble separating the actors from the teen chick flicks they had previously appeared in. Zombie's House, however, gave hope that a gritty horror film could make it to theaters, and at the time, I felt it would be the closest I would get to seeing a 70s, 80s horror film on the big screen. When I finally saw the film in theaters, I admit I was somewhat relieved. Not because I liked what I saw, but because it was refreshing to see something totally different than another Scream imitation. It was dark, twisted, and gritty like the horror films made decades back. But later did I realize that my excitement for seeing a classic imitation in theaters had clouded my judgments. Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses had predictable and cliché characters, a ripped-off score, and felt too much like an MTV music video. Why did it feel like a music video? Because up until that point, they were the only real experience he had.
Only real experience he had.
What led Rob Zombie to make his own film? Let's back up a bit. Prior to directing his first film, Zombie designed and directed a variety of music videos, as well as an animated sequence for Beavis and Butt-Head Do America. But even before working in music videos, the only experience he had in film or television was working as a production assistant for Pee-wee's Playhouse. And later, as a writer of a rejected screenplay for a Crow sequel. So how does Zombie go from a PA on the set of a children's television program to directing MTV music videos for artists such as Ozzy Osbourne? Because of the notoriety he had achieved as a metal act, and the little experience he had directing his own videos. These videos were nothing more than amateur short clips that depended almost entirely on their editing rather than their visual content. The video for his hit song Dragula seemed to be a bunch of clips directed entirely in front of a green screen, with a variety of black and white movie clips juxtaposed against them. How does he go from music videos to film? Not because of the music videos he directed, but rather a haunted house he designed for Universal Studios.
So Universal's association with Rob Zombie actually goes back to last decade. In the late 1990s and 2000s, we did an attraction with Rob Zombie.
Apparently, that's all it took for Universal to offer him a multi-million-dollar contract to direct and write a script they probably never thought to read. It's pretty fair to say that Zombie's film and video career couldn't have evolved if it hadn't been for his music act. If he had never gotten a solo contract with Geffen Records, which is owned by Universal, it's quite possible he would never have been given the budget needed to make House. Without Universal backing him from the beginning, Rob Zombie the horror director probably wouldn't exist. In other words, Rob Zombie's career as a filmmaker has been guided by his status as a metal figure, not his filmmaking ability. In an interview with DVDTalk.com in 2003, he states, "They, the fans and critics, think if you're a video store clerk, making movies is really a passion you have. Whereas if you've already had success in another field, they think you're just sort of fucking around. Oh, look, someone handed me this opportunity on a golden platter. But it's not really like that. It's difficult." With that said, how exactly is it then, Rob Zombie? We never really get a clear answer. It might have been difficult to make the film, but already belonging to a studio you made millions for is a pretty damn good way of getting a movie deal. Especially when you have a marketable household name.
Yeah, no, everybody loves you when you're rich.
When Zombie brought his work print of House before the heads of Universal for review, they felt the film was too shocking and weird for their studio. Instead of going through the complications of re-editing the film, they sold the film to Zombie, who then finds a home for it with Lionsgate, who at the time was making a name for itself as a strong horror distributor. House was moderately successful, in that it made more money than it cost to make. Being directed by a metal icon, the film appeared to both horror and metal fans, leading to its small success. When Lionsgate saw the success of House, they also saw dollar signs and were quick to jump on the opportunity for a sequel. Zombie quickly agreed on a sequel for the same reason. In an interview with thefilmasylum.com, when asked if he had always planned a sequel to House, he admits it was more because of the success of Corpses.
Please have it covered reads like this. Words can't describe it.
Upon its release, The Devil's Rejects shocked many who thought it was going to be just another long and dark psychedelic music video. To the amazement of many genre fans, even Ebert and Roper, who had had a history of bashing violent horror films, gave The Devil's Rejects 2 thumbs up.
Okay, our next movie is The Devil's Rejects, and it has to be the sickest, the most twisted, the most deranged movie so far this year. You get all that, plus the scariest clown in recent cinema history, a great rock soundtrack, and some gruesomely entertaining kills. It's a sick film, but for what it is, thumbs up.
Hate to disappoint you, but I'm going to give a thumbs up to him for exactly the same reasons that you have. But I don't want anyone watching this show and writing in and saying we gave it 2 thumbs up so they went to see it. It was disgusting.
It might have been better made technically, but I felt it once again relied too heavily on shock value rather than rich storytelling. Nonetheless, it was a much bigger success than House. Rob Zombie the filmmaker was now in the spotlight. At this point in Zombie's career, my opinion of him was pretty indifferent. I really only thought of him as a metal icon who made a few horror flicks. In that respect, I didn't exactly hate him. I really had no reason to. After reading several interviews published in magazines and various websites, I began to realize he was in fact passionate about horror films. In that regard, I gained some respect towards him despite not being a fan. As like much of the horror community, he loved and respected the classics and was openly against the Hollywood horror remake trend. In fact, there were several occasions where he confessed his dislike for remakes. In his interview with Are You Going magazine in 2002, he states, "I feel it's the worst thing any filmmaker can do. I actually got a call from my agent and they asked me if I wanted to be involved with the remake of Chainsaw. I said no fucking way. Those movies are perfect. You're only going to make yourself look like an asshole by remaking them." In a DVDTalk.com interview in 2003, he states, "Remaking films that were already great is kinda stupid. I don't really see the point." And also, in an interview with BladeDisgusting.com in 2004, he states, "My first reaction was to just wonder what the point of the remake is. I thought the same when they remade Psycho, and now they're remaking Dawn of the Dead as well. I love the original so much that I just wonder what's the point of doing a remake of these great movies is? What do you hope to improve upon?" Finally, a celebrity that was against the Hollywood remake trend, I thought to myself. But this newfound respect for Zombie wouldn't last long. Something would happen that would turn the entire horror world upside down. On June 4th, 2006, it was officially announced. Something every purist fan dreaded had come to formation. John Carpenter's horror classic, Halloween, was going to be remade. It was truly a shock. It then became apparent that no film was safe. By that point, they've remade Psycho, Dawn of the Dead, the Amityville Horror, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and others. Now they had their eyes set on Halloween and made it official. I asked the same questions many of the fans were wondering. Who was the guy in charge of its production? Who could be responsible for desecrating the grounds from which the slasher genre has evolved? That man's name was Rob Zombie. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Was this the same Rob Zombie who hated remakes?
Rob Zombie's third feature film, Halloween, is the latest in a long line of spin-offs inspired by John Carpenter's 1978 original.
I finally found respect for the guy, and now he does this? Much of the horror community felt the same and asked the same questions. Why would he do it? How could he do it? Why?
With just a phone call about a meeting. It was basically, the meeting was about Halloween in any form, you know, not a remake and not a prequel or a sequel. It was sort of like, you know, sort of threw it at me, Halloween, what do you think? And the whole remake thing sort of came from me.
The Weinstein Company clearly didn't care what kind of product Zombie was going to put out, as long as it was going to be a horror film with the zombie name attached.
Blame the Jews. Well, I'm just playing. But nah, yeah, the wine, I don't know, bro. And then he said, yeah, that whole remake thing is because of me. Weren't you just on an interview saying that you think that remakes are not worth the time because you're defeating the actual version? Why is no point to that? Huh? Sounds very contradicting, Mr. Rob Cummins.
In the interview with the CinemaSource.com, he explains, I think if I had told them, well, what if it was Michael Myers in space fighting Predator? Then they would have been like, yeah.
For this go-round, Dimension Films gave Zombie the freedom to do pretty much whatever he wanted.
If I had thrown every single thing out the window that John Carpenter had created, I don't even think they would have cared.
They knew his name with the Halloween title would bring in money, and money they wanted. They even told him to make it more Rob Zombie.
The studio kept on saying, like, make it more Rob Zombie. I don't know what that means. You know, I can't talk about myself as if I'm someone else.
Throughout the unfortunate ordeal, I sought out answers. I read just about every interview and article that had to do with the new Halloween film. First, I had to know why he decided to do it. Of course he wouldn't admit that it was money, but I had to hear what he had to say to be fair, and so I did. These are the possible reasons for Zombie, the alleged horror fan, to remake Halloween.
It's like being a rocker and a movie director.
It's great. It's all good all the time.
In early interviews, I'd remember him stating that bad films should be remade, not ones that were already perfect. In the interview with Are You Going in 2002, he states, go remake something that's a piece of shit and make it good. And as we already read, in 2003, he says it again to DVDtalk.com, remaking films that were already great is kind of stupid. I don't really see the point. This led me to believe that maybe he wasn't going back on his word, but rather he believed that the original Halloween was in fact a horrible film. Despite repeated claims that he loved the original, in interviews with MTV, he points out what he believed to be the flaws with Carpenter's classic to demonstrate how his film is an improvement. They are as follows.
I felt sometimes that the character of Dr. Loomis just popped in and out when they needed somebody to say something dramatic. You know, Loomis in all the other Halloween movies seemed kind of crazy, like a crazy guy running around trying to get people to help him. And it wasn't too hard to believe why no one believed him, because he seemed a little bit like he was crazy and drunk and off his rocker. There's even things about the original Michael Myers in Halloween that bothered me.
How dare you disrespect the real Loomis, bro? We don't care about this knockoff Amazon Loomis from fucking Yes Man. We remember you, sir, from Yes Man. Get out of here. The real Loomis is what's his name? No, I know. I just don't remember that. I just don't want to say the wrong last name. Huh?
Well, yeah.
I just said it the other day though, but I forgot. You know what it is. What is it? It's Donald Sterling. There you go. All right, for sure. But yeah.
Who said that?
Huh?
Who told
No, I just thought of it, church. But nah, like for real though, that other Loomis in that movie, I feel like was a knockoff of the other Loomis. So. Yeah. Yeah, he was drunk. Nobody was believing him, and he was real crazy. He wasn't believable. Shut up, you Rob Cummings. You. What kind of name is that, church? No wonder why you put zombie. Marilyn Manson want to be a. What is that? That one? The my Dracula. After you made that, you should have just stopped, bro. Meadow was looking at you like, what the hell was that? My Dracula. Get out of here, church. Yelling at the mic. Weird beer. All right.
We found the only mechanic that wears a pristine mechanic's uniform to kill. But when wanting to make it different, I was like, well, I don't want it just to be like he happened to rob a hardware store and steal that mask. What if they didn't have that mask? What would he steal, like a Jimmy Carter mask, or or an Elmo mask, if that was the only one available at the hardware store? And when did he rob the hardware store? In broad daylight, and the alarm's still ringing? Like, where is everybody? Those little things would always bother me in that movie. Thank God Loomis stopped to make that phone call exactly at that phone booth where he dropped the car off and found the Raven and Red matchbook. Those kind of coincidences always bothered me, so I'm trying to make things make a little more.
I haven't seen the station wagon around. Is Michael Myers driving the station wagon in this one?
Michael Myers does not know how to drive in this movie, because that always bothered me. They played it off like someone must have gave him lessons, but no one gave him lessons. He's in maximum security prison, so he doesn't drive. It bothered me. It bothered me in that movie. That always bothered me.
Yeah, you did ruin the franchise.
So could it be that Zombie, despite his claims of loving the original, felt it could have been done better? This is an important question that fans will probably never receive an honest answer to. Zombie's perspective towards remakes slowly began to change. For years he had preached his dislike for the remake phenomenon, but ever since his deal with the Weinstein Company,
If I only had the phone on right now, this would be the thumbnail right here. Chat GBT, spruce him up a little bit. Pixar, yeah, for sure. It's the one.
he began to believe it could be an incredible idea and that he was originally taking the completely wrong attitude. In an interview, he goes on to say, "The remake thing is done all the time, but it's not done well. Truthfully, if I couldn't see any way to do this, I wouldn't do it because it's a challenging project." A year later, his perspective of remakes sways more in favor of them. He states, "To me, remakes are sort of about passion and intent." But the most popular theory speculated among fans is that he did it for money. Money has always been the major, if not only, motive in Hollywood studios. We've seen them produce inferior imitations to mimic success, and we've also seen long strings of sometimes low-grade sequels for that same reason. It would only make sense that the Hollywood money bug had bitten Zombie as well. In an interview with IconsOfFright.com, he responds to all the criticism. "People thought I was only doing this for money. No, I could have went on tour and made 10 times the money I made making this movie. It wasn't about money. It was just about really wanting to do it, and I think that's when movies work." Rob Zombie was right about one thing. He would in fact have made more money on tour than he would have made from this movie's production alone, but there was something he was leaving out in that interview with IconsOfFright.com. There was a long-term incentive for Zombie to team up with the Weinstein Company and Dimension. According to an article in Variety, Dimension Films has inked a 2-picture deal with writer-director Rob Zombie. Zombie goes on to state that the deal was a natural step in the evolution of my film career. Finally, I had my answer. What does this amount to? At first, his instincts as a fan said no, don't do it. But as he dreamt dollar signs over the next couple of weeks or months, he saw the Halloween remake as a great opportunity to break into the major studios of Hollywood. It's true he didn't use Halloween as a source of income, but what he did use it for was an opportunity. Even the CinemaSource.com article goes on to state, "Now Zombie has his first shot at mainstream filmmaking, with the reimaging of John Carpenter's classic horror film Halloween for the Weinstein Company." Is anyone really surprised that Zombie decided to take advantage of his image and accept the Weinstein deal as an opportunity for future projects? In the 2004 interview with BladeDiscussing.com, he's asked how he feels towards the movies his music is heard in. "To be honest, I don't really care. Even if the movie is shit, I just take the money and run." This answer is an important part of his character, and for to desecrate a classic. Rob Zombie
Such a great story that once you have that, you can flip it upside down and take it in a whole nother direction.
Once it sunk in that Zombie was going to do the remake, we all wondered how he was going to do it. Since he was going to do it regardless of how the fans felt, he might as well do it with respect towards the original, according to the press release. Zombie's vision of this film is an entirely new take on the legend, and will satisfy fans of the classic Halloween legacy while beginning a new chapter in the Michael Myers saga. This new film will not only appeal to horror fans, but to a wider movie-going audience as well. It will not be a copycat of any prior films in the Halloween franchise. So it appeared that Zombie was going to do something totally different. At this point, I agree with Zombie about one thing. What's the point of a remake if it imitates the original? But on that note, I would also say, what's the point? Imitates the original. But on that note, I would also say,
Church? Sorry, we're having technical difficulties right now. I don't know what's going on. About give me about 2 seconds. Fix it. What the fuck, church? Church? What happened? Church? What's going on? Give me 2 seconds. Alright, we go. Just back on the screen, man. King Pill got pressed by the threes and then he folded. I've been goaded. Ooh-ah.
To break it to the major studios of Hollywood. It's true he didn't use Halloween as a source of income, but what he did use it for was an opportunity. Even the CinemaSource.com article goes on to state, now Zombie has his first shot at mainstream filmmaking, with the remaking, reimaging of John Carpenter's classic horror film Halloween for the Weinstein Company. Is anyone really surprised that Zombie decided to take advantage of his image and accept the Weinstein deal as an opportunity for future projects? In the 2004 interview with BladeDiscussing.com, he's asked how he feels towards the movies his music is heard in. To be honest, I don't really care. Even if the movie is shit, I just take the money and run. This answer is an important reflection.
Damn, so it was for the money, church. Well, you let it be known.
I'll take the money and run.
Well, let it be known. That's the reason.
Baby oil.
That's the reason why. Oh, so you're basically saying that Rob Zombie was at the Diddy party? Is that what you're saying? Rob Cummings. All right.
Of Zombie's character and foreshadows his future decision to desecrate a classic. Rob Zombie lacks what many lose when they allow themselves to be sucked into the Hollywood industry: artistic integrity.
It's such a great story that once you have that, you can flip it upside down and take it in a whole nother direction.
Once it sunk in that Zombie was going to do the remake, we all wondered how he was going to do it. Since he was going to do it regardless of how the fans felt, he might as well do it with respect towards the original, according to the press release. Zombie's vision of this film is an entirely new take on the legend, and will satisfy fans of the classic Halloween legacy while beginning a new chapter in the Michael Myers saga. This new film will not only appeal to horror fans, but to a wider movie-going audience as well. It will not be a copycat of any prior films in the Halloween franchise. So it appeared that Zombie was going to do something totally different. At this point, I agree with Zombie about one thing. What's the point of a remake if it imitates the original? But on that note, I would also say, what's the point of creating a remake that is totally different? If that's the case, why not call it by a different title, instead of milking off the iconic character and recognizable title? Is that how you're going to owe respect to the original? There's obviously a problem with either choice you make. The only solution is to not make a remake. So how different would the film be? As he had mentioned, it was going to center around our iconic character, Michael Myers. But what concerned many fans is that Zombie was going to demystify the character. In the original, Myers seemed to be an ordinary kid that snapped one night. There was no rhyme, reason, or motive to the killing of his sister in the original, and in the new film, there wouldn't be either. Or would there be? It seems Zombie hardly knew himself. In the interview with the CinemaSource.com, he states, "I didn't want him to have a really terrible childhood," Zombie says, noting that he didn't want to make any excuses for him, because when it comes down to it, he's just evil. And in an interview with IconsOfFright.com, "I wanted to get a glimpse of his life, but everything that would make him that person is completely unexplainable. You can't go, oh, this happened, so he's that. No, the whole point was I wanted to set him in a more lower class situation, because it doesn't matter."
Hold on. Because how are you gonna say that? Because there's a bunch of things that break down why he was like that. He was from the Druids, the witchcraft people. They put the stuff into him. Not.
If he grew up in a rich family or a poor family, he's still fucking psycho.
You know, I don't explain why he is the way he is, because what I found interesting is that you can't really explain it. Because, you know, truly if that character was a real character, a real person, he's just sort of born that way.
Sherry Moon, agreeing with her husband, states, "I think you can safely assume he was just sort of born that way." But in other interviews, he contradicts himself.
I try to make everything he did be motivated and justified in some way, so it's never just random killing for no reason. There's like a reason for everything.
Since it was clear that Zombie himself didn't know exactly what he was doing, do you think he would go to the fans for any advice or guidance? After all, the fans are the ones who've kept the franchise alive for so long. He comments on how he feels about those who are openly opinionated on the Halloween remake concept. In pre-production on making the film, I didn't look at anything online or anywhere. because I didn't care. Because you're so focused on what you're trying to do that it just doesn't matter. The only way to make your movie is that you have to have a vision of what you want, and you have to be so single-minded that you don't give a fucking shit what anyone thinks. So is this Zombie's response to the fans who made these films what they are, especially the original? He doesn't give a fucking shit what anyone thinks? If this was Zombie's original idea such as House or Devil's Rejects, I completely agree. But we don't have that here. Zombie is given the keys to a well-established franchise that spans over 30 years. These films belong to the fans that made them flourish. We paid to see them and paid to get the sequels made. When you have a franchise like Halloween or any horror legacy for that matter, the filmmakers should have a responsibility towards the fans who kept it alive. But instead, Zombie has to be, in his own words, single-minded. Bow your head in shame.
I'm not a fan of like 80s slasher bloody movies. It's always bored me then, bores me now.
On August 31st, 2007, Rob Zombie's atrocity was unleashed upon the world. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. Rob Zombie had claimed that he wanted his film to be more believable than the original, when in fact, it had many elements that weren't believable at all. Here are the 5 major flaws of Rob Zombie's Halloween.
I have to fucking work tonight. Somebody around here's got to make some money.
I'm all broken up here, bitch. I can't work.
Yeah, and whose fault is that? God, you're pathetic.
I never completely understood why Zombie approached this film with white trash in mind. He intended to create something totally different from his previous films, but once again we see the same white trash characters living their white trash ways.
I hope she likes cripples.
Bitch, I will crawl over there and I will skull fuck this shit out of you.
The amount of profanity in this film is a huge distraction. Sure, some might use profanity more than others, but this, listen for yourself.
I have to fucking work tonight.
I'm all broken up here, bitch. Look, them flappy ass tits.
A good fucking time.
Bitch, and I will skull fuck this shit out of you.
Oh, fucking loud mouth.
That's all that fucker does. Oh, fuck you,
Fuck off.
bitch.
They're fucking gross.
Man, that bitch got herself a nice little dumper. Daughter's ass. Fucking whore! A little bitch. Give me a fucking break. End up cutting his dick and balls off the fucking rat. Fucking rat. Fucking fake.
I like the mask because it hides my face.
Zombie intended to strip Myers of all supernatural qualities, but the Myers we see in this film is quite the contrary. Miraculously, he goes from a young average-sized boy to a huge overpowering monster by simply making paper masks in a small cell for 15 years. How does he have the strength to break chains? How does he have the strength to lift a grown man off the ground by his head and crush it? How is he able to take 3 or 4 gunshot wounds to the back and still be able to struggle with an erratic teenage girl? How does a mask survive after being buried for over 10 years? Latex rots. It's not going to last long being buried under some old floorboards. It would either dry rot and fall apart, or the humidity would fuse it into a big gooey latex ball. Listen from Zombie's effects man himself.
Latex, it's a natural material and it rots, and especially if it's worn a lot and someone's sweating in it, it just accelerates that process.
Zombie had stated he didn't want actors from the previous Halloween films to play in his film because the cameos become a joke, with the exception of Danielle Harris apparently. In my opinion, she was the only ex-Halloween actor cast in the remake because she was willing to be topless.
Yeah? You're so fucking hot. Fuck me.
Seeing the young girl we grew to love in parts 4 and 5 all growing up and topless would obviously cause some perverse talk in the horror world, and thus Zombie made an exception. In addition, he includes cameos of a different kind, his buddies. If Zombie wants to put his buds in his own films, then fine, but the fans own Halloween. We don't want to see the same tribe of horror duds in the same movies over and over again.
You seem to have a family on all your movies. You bring the same actors along to your projects. How do you think that's helped you?
Well, I mean, I think everyone does that. A lot of directors do that. I like to try to jam as many of my friends in there too.
Awesome. All right.
So you know that done deal, no matter what. Yeah, no matter what, I wouldn't do another one.
For a while, I thought it would end there for Rob Zombie. Perhaps not his film career, but his involvement with the Halloween franchise. In several interviews, he expressed firmly that he would not be involved with any sequels since he had done everything he wanted to do with his remake.
Would this be a franchise? Are you talking about doing another in the series?
I'm not talking about it. I mean, I want to do the one film with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then be done with it.
What about you? Would you do another one?
I have signed on for another one because I was under the belief that Rob was doing another one.
Oh. Well, how do you feel about that? I just learned that as well. How do you feel about
He just
Rob
called
maybe
you
not,
out, bro.
definitely not doing a
Put you on
second one?
blast.
Well, you know, it changes a few things.
So does that mean that there, if this does well and is received well, that there'd be a sequel?
Probably not with me. I mean, I'm done. I don't want to do anymore. I mean, I did everything I wanted to do in this movie, but you know.
So you know that done deal, no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what, I wouldn't do another one.
I figured a sequel was bound to happen. It would only make sense since the remake brought in money at the box office. But who would direct it? It couldn't be Zombie, right? Since he claimed to want no involvement in future Halloween projects? Well, my friends, we should have learned the first time not to take Zombie at his word. He was declared as the director of the Halloween remake sequel.
It all started at the Scream Awards. I was at the Scream Awards and I thought somebody else was making this movie. And I ran into Matt Stein from the Weinstein Company and I asked Matt, I said, how's it going? Halloween 2? And he's like, not good, Rob, not good. And they hadn't even started yet. And I was like, oh, well, you know, if anything happens, I wouldn't mind doing it.
It's also interesting to note that even though his wife died in the remake, he manages to squeeze her into the sequel. God forbid he couldn't have his wife in one of his movies. This would mean less money for the family bank account.
That's why I like the movie so much, because it doesn't have to adhere to these nonsense rules about what a Halloween movie can or cannot be. I'm making the rules now. I can do whatever I want.
Once upon a time, Rob Zombie was an awesome metal icon that wanted to make movies that were just as edgy as his music. He did so and succeeded. With success came Hollywood knocking at his door, and with them, a huge briefcase of cash money. Zombie was a sellout well before he started making movies, and continues to be now. As a self-proclaimed horror fan, he destroyed the very franchise that opened a whole new subgenre of horror. And what does he receive? A standing ovation by those who don't understand the importance of originality and preservation, and reviled by those who want to protect the name of classic horror. We can no longer talk about Halloween as a single entity in the cinematic timeline, but now must make a distinction between the original and the remake. There is only one Halloween, and there will only be one Halloween, and that film was made in 1978 by John Carpenter and his crew. Robert Cummings committed a crime against true terror. On a final note, I'd like to end with a quote on remakes. I don't think it's because someone feels inspired. It's done because someone sees money. Personally, Rob, I couldn't agree more.
Alright, so it's safe to say that Rob Zombie is a sellout and he ruined the Halloween franchise. He was trying to change everything up, do anything that he wanted to do with it. He didn't care about nothing about the original shit except put in John Carpenter's music in it. And yeah, the second one was a freaking flop. I think it was in the movie theater for maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, so we're gonna go on to the next clip. We're gonna break down how trash Halloween 2 was. If you guys didn't see it, we gonna watch a couple clips. Oh man. Oh.
Well, let's try and help your brain heal a little bit today, okay?
Okay.
Okay. How's your relationship with Annie going?
Annie? Hi, not good. I don't know if I'm gonna shitty by saying this, but
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't even stomach 2 minutes of this trash. We're gonna do a different react to a different clip from different Halloween. We're gonna do Halloween, Rob Zombie, like some clips that we actually watched. I got you.
I have some good news, Mr. Leach. The board is coming around to our story. Sales are lining up, and there's so much here they have to act on.
Yes, he's reacting to it.
Thank God. We've even managed to find information on who this man was as a child.
I think he's making fun of it.
Who is he? Why does he do this?
1963.
Yeah.
It all began.
So Rob Zombie's Halloween tells the story of young Michael Myers while he is enduring some insane living conditions, creating him into the psychopathic shape that we know and love, as well as telling the story of Smith's Grove, how he escaped, and eventually getting into his showdown with Laurie Strode. We'll welcome everybody to the Rob Zombie section of the Halloween franchise. One of the most hate-fueled, argumentative, divisive sections of this entire franchise. So I can't wait to place my feet in the sand and put my opinions out there. This is going to be fun. So Rob Zombie's Halloween remake came to us right thick in the middle of the remake craze in the mid to late 2000s, 2007, so I was still in high school. Still remember when this movie was announced. I was really nervous and excited because there was the two movies previous that I had seen by Rob Zombie, House of...
Damn, Church, 2007, you was in high school, bro? I was like in elementary school, P. Like I was like, I think like maybe what was that? I was third grade going into fourth grade. Yeah, I was going into fourth grade. Yeah, because 2008 I was fifth grade. Yeah. So yeah, fourth grade, man. He talking about high school. That's crazy. That's pretty, excuse me. That's a pretty big gap, bro.
Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. I did not like it all. Have yet to revisit those movies, so I'm curious what my thoughts are now. And when they announced that he was going to be doing it, I was scared that he was going to put too much of those movies in it, but at the same time I was very excited because the style that the trailers were showing and the direction that he was going, at least at the time, seemed like a really cool, unique way to remake the original film and a unique place to take this franchise. So opening night comes, me and my dad go to the theater, we sit down, we both have the exact same fears but the exact same excitements with the movie we are about to watch. The screen comes up, Halloween, boom, the title sequence, and then we get Rob Zombie's dialogue smeared into our face. And so begins the problems with Rob Zombie's Halloween. But before I get to all that, let's talk about the things that I actually do like about Rob Zombie's Halloween that I have liked since the first time that I saw it. And one of the strange things about this movie is every single time that I rewatch it, which has probably been 5 times or so since 2007, the things that I like about this movie, I like more every single time that I watch it. But the things that I don't like, I fucking hate by the time I've watched it the 4th or 5th time. But the good things about Rob Zombie's Halloween. First and foremost, I have said this numerous times, Rob Zombie is not the worst director out there. I wouldn't even say that he is in the conversation for worst directors out there. What he is far and away the most frustrating fucking director that I have ever watched a film by. And that's because there are some things that he does horribly wrong that he refuses to budge on, but there are some things that he gets so right that it frustrates the shit out of you why you can't harness the good energy of this and block out all the bad shit that everybody keeps telling you fuck up in every single movie. And one of those things that he harnesses very well in Rob Zombie's Halloween is the camera work. The camera work, the way that he sets up shots, the way that he frames certain shots, the different camera styles that he uses in the 3 acts of this movie, the way that he visually tells the story of his version of Michael Myers and Halloween. It's great.
The camera work by this guy is awesome in this movie. The way that the first act of the movie is kind of more handheld, a little bit grittier, you know, a little bit more in your face and moves around a lot more. Some would say shaky, but I think it's just a shutter effect that he puts on a couple of scenes. There's really not a whole lot of shaky cam in this, at least in the theatrical cut, the one that I prefer to watch. You get to the second act of the movie that's mostly in Smith's Grove, and because it's in a hospital psychiatric environment, the camera is fixated and it never moves. It's almost like CCTV footage in a way, the way that they shoot the second act. And then you get into the third act of this movie, and it's shot a lot more traditional, like your traditional slasher or horror film. There's a lot of different cameras, a lot of different camera movements, cranes, different apparatuses that he uses, and it's just cool how each act of this movie kind of has its own flavor just because of the way that Zombie moves the camera around. And there's a lot of really good, interesting, and creepy, kind of demented shots in this movie that work well. I mean, kind of going through chronologically, you got like the shot at the beginning whenever Myers is killing his sister Judith and he's following her down the hallway, and it kind of, the camera's a little bit guerrilla the way that it moves, and it's kind of following from right before her POV, and he's kind of in the background and he's cutting her up a little bit by little, and especially by the way that that actress kind of portrays the pain of that scene. Very creepy the way that that all kind of unfolds. You get into the Smith's Grove, and one of the cooler scenes, I think, is when Danny Trejo's character is killed, where you go back and forth from the shots of Michael pulling him up for air, pushing him back down into this vat of water, and then the camera is fixated inside the sink or whatever the hell was holding that water, and he's just inside of, and blood's coming out, and it goes back and forth, and it kind of makes you live out that death to an uncomfortable length. And then you get into the third act, and there's a lot of cool kind of recreations of some of John Carpenter's scenes in the original film that just have its own little gritty flavor to it, just because of the way that Rob Zombie frames shots and everything. So I do think the way that he shoots this movie is one of the best things about it. Moving on from that, which is probably one of the most important things that he had to get right, and I do think that he gets right, is Michael Myers himself. I think that Tyler Mane is probably the most brutal, vicious, and arguably scariest versions of Michael Myers as far as intimidation factor goes. You know, there's the supernatural element of the original John Carpenter Michael Myers that is never going to be topped as far as scary, but if I was to pick like which Michael Myers I wanted chasing me down the street, Tyler Mane would probably be at the bottom of that list, because that dude just looks like he would just break you in half with a look. And his version of Myers is just in your face, violent as hell. And of course you're going to get that in a Rob Zombie movie. But I like that different take on Michael Myers, and I like the way that Tyler Mane portrays this huge hulking version of Myers. And going along with that is the look of Myers. I think that the mask in this movie might be my favorite after the original.
Yeah, I feel like the mask was pretty good, but it kind of looked a lot like the Captain Kirk one. So if he did want to make it look a little bit different, he should have added a little bit more different detail to it. But yeah.
Goes back and forth between this and Halloween 6 because that mask is very good as well. But I love the recreation of the William Shatner mask, and especially in the third act of the movie when he digs the mask up and it's a little bit more scarred and weathered. I like that look too. So the look of Myers, the way that the overalls look, where it's a little bit more dingy, and the look of the mask especially, a great look for Michael Myers. And dare I say this, I think Sheri Moon Zombie is actually pretty decent in this movie. She's not a huge highlight by any means. Certainly think there was much better actresses out there that could have played the role of Michael Myers' mother, but I think that for all the times that I've seen Sheri Moon Zombie, even in movies where she is the main star, like The Lords of Salem, there's moments in her performance in this movie, especially when she's kind of showing the grieving mother or the shock of what Michael is doing, that she's actually pretty capable. So I will give credit where credit is due. I wouldn't have cast her myself, but I know that she's required in the contract somewhere where Rob Zombie makes a film, she has to play a character. I think that she did much better in this movie than I've seen her do in any of the other movies that Rob Zombie has made. I mean, you look through the cast here, you've got Ken Faree playing Joe Grizzly, bitch.
Let me introduce myself.
So this
I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
You've got Dee Wallace, you've got Bill Moseley in the theatrical cut. least so many actors that you will pick and be like, oh my god, that's so and so from that. Oh, that's the dude from Texas Chainsaw 2. That's the chick from Cujo. And it's great because they're not only good in their roles because they're good at playing these little smaller supporting
It'll start playing in a second. Huh?
The first scene, worst offender. Fucking unwatchable. I've said it before, I will say it again until he learns. Rob Zombie, you might be a great director, but you are a fucking horrible writer.
Horrible writer. He didn't say a bad writer. He said a horrible writer. Rob Zombie, you are a horrible writer. This guy right here, whatever his name is. Oh yeah, Cody Leach. Yo, go check out Cody Leach, man. But yeah, Cody Leach does not like that Rob Zombie, man. Oh, it's, what the fuck?
Stop writing your own movies, or at least let somebody tap you on the fucking shoulder and say, maybe we shouldn't put 18 fucks and cunts in the first 5 minutes of this movie. Might turn some people off. I mean, Jesus Christ, people. Like, when I go back to the experience I had in the theater watching this movie for the first time, when me and my father sat down having the same excitement for what could be, but the same fears for what we know Rob Zombie has already done, and the opening scene of this movie comes on, once God of Thunder is out of the way, and we get into William Forsythe's character of Ronnie, and you got Sherry Moon Zombie, and you get fucking Judith and White Trash Michael, and everybody's hanging out in this little Rob Zombie world. Oh my God, I have not slumped down in my fucking seat in the theater so fast watching a film. I mean, like the first 20 lines of dialogue are abysmal. I'm gonna crawl over there and skull fuck the shit out of you. Crying shit, crying shit. I'll just bust my spunk all over them floppy ass tits. God damn, your daughter's got a nice little dumper, you jealous of your daughter's ass? You're talking about your stepdaughter, you disgusting fucking pig. And I like William Forsythe, but goddamn, this is what happens when you let Rob Zombie write his own dialogue. I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to paint this picture of this horrible upbringing, this horrible home life to kind of facilitate the creation of the psychopath in Michael Myers. But goddamn, Rob, look up one word for me: subtlety. Things are always creepier when you don't have the answer, when you don't have a direct line to the psychopath, when you have a Ted Bundy or a John Wayne Gacy that everybody swore was this normal, great, loving human being, and there was this dark side that nobody knows why, nobody knows where it came from, and nobody knows how to explain it. Which is problem number one with the approach you took with this movie, but we all gave you a shot and said, okay, you want to tell us how Michael Myers became Michael Myers? Don't fuck this up. And you had to smear your fucking dialogue all over our faces like a shitty diaper. I mean, you watch the opening 5 minutes of this movie and you're like, well, no fucking shit, he became a serial killer. And unfortunately, that bad writing, that bad dialogue, that white trashiness, that disgusting version of humanity that Rob Zombie is obsessed with just pumping in his movie, it's all throughout the fucking runtime of Rob Zombie's Halloween. It lessens as the movie goes on. The opening scene is certainly kind of getting most of it out of his system, but still, it's sprinkled throughout every 10 to 12 minutes of the runtime of this movie to the point where you're like, stop, it doesn't belong here, stop forcing it. I mean, when Michael Myers, the epitome of evil, the shape, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, the evil incarnate, when that character is like the 15th worst character in this movie as far as morals and humanity goes, you got a fucking problem.
Oh, and you know, I heard your sister got caught selling blowjobs in the bathroom. I heard they had to pump the cum out of her stomach. Hey, Mikey, how's your mom doing? You know, my old man said that for $1 she'd rub her tits on his face. Shut up. What the fuck did you say, faggot? Mikey's upset.
But even beyond that opening scene and the characters at home in the Myers household, you get to the school, you get more disgusting characters bullying Michael Myers, which leads to this murder, the first kill of the movie, where he beats this kid to death for bullying him. And it's supposed to be one of those setups where this kid is so disgusting and such a vile human being and such one of those bullies that is so over the top in a movie that you want him to get his comeuppance, but by the time you get to the kill, it's filmed in such a brutal, dark, and gringy way that that effect is lost. And now you're just watching this 15, 16-year-old kid get beaten to death slowly. And I know Rob Zombie likes you to feel uncomfortable, so maybe that's what he was going for and didn't really care whether or not you wanted the kid to die or not. It's just an uncomfortable scene, and it's not a good opening kill. When you have a slasher movie, an opening kill is usually supposed to be either one of your moneymaker kills or at least something to just get you into the killer as your bad guy. But again, you're trying to humanize Michael by having this character that we want to die. All of it's wrong. All of it's wrong.
Please. No, no, please.
But then we get past all that shit. We move into the second act of the movie. We wave bye-bye to all the fucking William Forsythe skull fucking shit. And we get into the Smith's Grove section of this movie, which is what, honestly, as a fan of the original movie, out of curiosity, I was most interested in. Because I didn't really necessarily have a whole lot of curiosity about what made Michael the killer. But the sessions between Loomis and Michael about what conversations they had or failed to have, since Michael Myers is not supposed to talk unless you're in a Rob Zombie movie. All of that curiosity, I was waiting for somebody to show me their version of what went on. And unfortunately for me, the second act of this movie is extremely underwhelming as far as giving me that. You have a couple of sessions with Dr. Loomis and Michael. Some of them, Michael talks, and then you get to the point when Michael doesn't talk anymore. And they don't really give you a great motivation for why suddenly he snaps and doesn't talk anymore, but nonetheless. They don't really feel like sessions that would fill Loomis's mind with this fear, this certainty, this driven direction that Michael is evil incarnate. That this kid needs to be kept in this fucking Smith's Grove sanitarium for the rest of his life until he dies of old age, or we're all fucked. You never quite get that convincing scene in this movie where Loomis goes from caring psychologist trying to reach this kid that's endured a lot of hell and given a lot of hell back to the world, to suddenly fearing this as something that is less than human, something that is just pure evil. You never get that transition. And even getting down to the escape scene, 14 or 15 years later, whenever Michael is suddenly Tyler Mane huge and he's been there not talking for over a decade, and Loomis finally decides, I can't reach you, I have to retire or go work somewhere else. You get two different versions of this depending on if you watch the theatrical or the director's cut. And unfortunately, neither one of them are very good. You get one that is extremely horrible and ridiculous and so Rob Zombie forced that it is unwatchable. And you get the other one that's just kind of weak and uninspired. So pick your poison, I guess. You get the theatrical version where Michael simply just breaks his chains, beats the shit out of a couple of guards, and walks out of this sanitarium. And it's cool because you get to see Bill Moseley, but other than that, it's just too easy. It just seems like that should have been one of the main highlight scenes of your movie, and it feels like that version of it was kind of written on a Sunday when it was due on Monday. Now you get to the Rob Zombie's director's cut version, and again, this is why you don't let Rob Zombie write his own movies, because you get two scumbag sanitarium workers who come in with this whack job chick from the sanitarium, and they start raping her in Michael Myers' cell. Because reasons. And then Michael gets pissed off, comes to save the day, which again, humanizing Michael Myers, big no-no, and then walks the fuck out of the sanitarium. So really the escape scenes on both fronts to me, big missed opportunity. But then we move into the third act, and I will say that the third act is certainly the best part of this movie. It's certainly the most watchable, and it certainly has most of this movie's redeeming qualities. There is still a con associated with this third act, in that it's basically a rushed Cliff Note version of the John Carpenter version of 1978. If you're going to have a movie that is totally unique, that you're going for this wildly unique direction, it feels like a complete change of pace when suddenly, on a dime, you're out of Rob Zombie's version of Halloween and suddenly in this quickened version of the Halloween that you know and love. And it feels like that third act was almost like studio mandated somehow, because the tone, the way that Myers acts, the way that some of the dialogue shifts, it just feels like a totally different movie. Now, I prefer that version, but at the same time, it just doesn't flow quite as well. But you get into the third act, And you have some problems with Rob Zombie's writing as far as the characters, because not as bad as William Forsythe and all that nasty shit, but you get into the recreated characters of the John Carpenter's version, like Laurie Strode, Annie Brackett, Linda, and they're all watered down versions of the 1978 characters. Even Annie, who honestly is not that great of an actress in the original movie, you get to Danielle Harris, and while Danielle Harris is far and away a much better actress, what she's given to do in this movie makes her not as likable as a character, and you're not as invested in her. They correct that in Halloween 2, but you get this movie here, and Danielle Harris, Linda is just kind of a slut extreme version of her character in the original movie, where every single line of dialogue this chick has is just talking about snatch and, oh yeah, you want some of this, come and get it. And then she's fucking this nasty ass looking dude who blows his load inside of her, goes away to get a beer, and the first thing she does is call Laurie to say, hey, do you think I'm a slut? Survey says, yes. And even down to Laurie Strode herself. Now, I will say something somewhat controversial here. I think Scout Taylor Compton is a really good actress. I think that there's aspects of her character in this and certain scenes where she has to act where I actually think she's a better actress than Jamie Lee Curtis was in 1978 to a degree. But what Rob Zombie gives her to do makes her character a much less effective, much less memorable, and much less loved version of Laurie Strode, because she's basically reduced down to the first half of her story as her making these weird sexual jokes and kind of playing along with the sexually charged jokes of her two friends, and then suddenly she's screaming and wailing and running around crying and freaking the fuck out for the rest of the runtime. So you don't really get to know this version of Laurie at all. But let's get down to the big one as far as character goes. And this one is more on the mixed side than a con, but it certainly leans heavier on the con side, so I'm going to talk about it here, and that's just Malcolm McDowell's version of Dr. Loomis, which I do not blame him for. Again, I blame Rob Zombie, because this is the thing with the Loomis that we have in this movie. All of the opportunities that you had to have a different version of Loomis, to flesh out that character more, to flesh out the relationship between him and Myers more, to, you know, give us what we didn't have in that original series from Donald Pleasance's Loomis, and it's just kind of rushed. You don't really get that. They don't focus on that. They're focusing on how white trashy Michael Myers' upbringing is, and then they kind of skate past the sanitarium shit to get to the John Carpenter side of things. But when you get down to the third act, when Loomis really gets to have a lot more place in this story, it feels like they just take lines from the original Halloween. They give these iconic Loomis lines that Donald Pleasance brought to the world that we all know and love him for, and tell Malcolm McDowell, hey, say that shit. Worked in the first one, it's going to work here. But it doesn't, because even though Malcolm McDowell is a very seasoned, beloved actor, and apparently he never watched the original John Carpenter's Halloween, so that he didn't really know what Donald Pleasance brought to this character and didn't accidentally replicate it, his versions of all these lines don't feel anywhere near as effective, as scary, or as well done as they did when Donald Pleasance said them. And they are fucking verbatim. I mean, if you're gonna go this route, at least give your Loomis something else to say. Make your Loomis be the one to convince Sheriff Brackett that Michael Myers' evil has come to your little town. Make all that stuff happen, but give him different lines of dialogue. Give him other ways to do it besides just copy and paste what worked in 1978. And honestly, I never really got that belief that Malcolm McDowell's version of Loomis truly feared Myers. You know, when you get the Donald Pleasance version, this guy believes Myers is fucking evil incarnate. Like, this thing moves with forces of evil. This is not a human. This is just blackness. And you believe that. Loomis is the one that makes you believe how evil and scary Michael Myers is. When you get into this one, it's almost like he sympathizes too much with Myers, and he cares for him, and he's trying to get him back to the sanitarium more than he's trying to stop him. Even though he buys this big fucking gun, you never believe like he's out to get Myers, like he's out to stop the evil. You just feel like he's there because the script requires him to be. And that also just kind of goes back to the writing. You know, when it gets to this Cliff Notes version of Halloween in the second half to the third act of this version of Halloween, it really feels like Rob Zombie didn't know how to recreate it without recreating it directly. There's things that's ripped directly from that movie, but there's also moments that he invents himself that feel like they don't even fit. It feels like you could delete that scene altogether and the movie would flow just along fine. I mean, supposedly he was writing a lot of shit on the day of shooting too, which is never a good sign for a movie. Very few movies out there that work can say that. We wrote the shit today, and we filmed it today, and it's awesome. Doesn't always work that way. In fact, it hardly ever works that way. So no surprise there. But overall, the big overarching negative with this movie, just to kind of wrap up everything, is the same overarching negative that wraps up pretty much every movie that I've ever seen by Rob Zombie, and that's the writing. The dude just cannot write. He can't write dialogue, most of all. He struggles with story. He can get a concept out there, he can get the visuals out there, he can bring a style to it, but he cannot write the journey. Somebody else needs to write his movies, or at least really fucking help him, look over his shoulder and tap him once in a while when he gets a little too crazy. But anyway, guys, even though I ranted for a very long time on this movie because it's one of the most frustrating viewing experiences in this franchise, and Rob Zombie is easily, for me, the most frustrating director that I ever have experience with, just because he does things so good, but he fucks up things that are just so crucial that he refuses to bend on. That, man, overall, I think this is a movie that is going to frustrate most people. I think that there are its fans, people that love Rob Zombie's style and they love his movies regardless of anything that I say. They're going to love this. Fans of that original 1978 have already pretty much voiced their opinions. Pretty much all of them, for the most part, hate this one, or at least don't like it anywhere near as much as the original. So it's a movie that you kind of have to know who you are when you go into it. But I think there are enough redeeming factors in this. There is enough entertainment value in here. There's enough variety in the kills. There's enough coolness in the portrayal of Myers. There's enough there to grab onto, especially once you get out of that real icky first act of the movie, that it is a movie that I do, for the most part, about 60% enjoy whenever I rewatch it, despite all of the fucking problems and despite all the fucking things that frustrate me about this movie. So it's still going to get by with a recommendation. But I will say this as a helpful hint. Watch the theatrical version. I have not rewatched the theatrical version since the theaters until I watched it in preparation for this review, and I have watched the director's cut every single time previous to about an hour ago when I watched the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is so much better. It trims down the runtime just in small ways, but even small scenes when they just trim off little lines of dialogue, like the nurse in the scene whenever Myers kills her in the sanitarium and then decides not to talk anymore. The theatrical cut, all she does is say, "That's a cute baby," and puts the picture down, goes about the day reading her newspaper, and gets killed randomly, which is the way that Myers always works. In the director's cut, she makes this little shitty remark to Myers about being ugly, and this baby can never be related to you, then turns around, and how the fuck did you not expect that psychotic little bastard to stab you in the neck with whatever he could find? So even just little scenes like that, especially taking out the rape scene, like little small subtle differences from the theatrical cut to the director's cut. I think the director's cut just highlights all of Rob Zombie's flaws, where the theatrical cut, you can tell an editor was taking some shit out here and there to make the movie a lot better. So watch this, but watch the theatrical cut. So if you're a fan of that original 1978 John Carpenter film, and you maybe want to see some of the aspects of the story, his style, you like his filmmaking, and you don't care what anybody says, you think his movies are awesome, give this thing a shot. Just walk into it with very tempered expectations. Know who you are, know what your tastes are, so you're not running away screaming after the first 5 minutes of dialogue, but give it a shot. No rush. Check it out on Netflix. So what do you guys think of Rob Zombie's Halloween? Are you on the end of the camp that thinks this is fucking abysmal? Or are you in the minority that thinks that this movie is awesome and don't get all the hate for it? Put your thoughts down below in the comment section and tell me what your thoughts leading into Halloween 2, which will be coming up right after this. And then we are done with this review series until Halloween 2018, baby. Put all your thoughts down below on Rob Zombie's Halloween, guys, and we will talk about it. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some social media links, check down below in the video description for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my Spreadshirt store for awesome Cody Leach merchandise like t-shirt designs that you guys will eat up. and my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only, such as the ability to choose reviews or top 5 videos or the topic of anything you want me to talk about. That's this patron-only privilege, as well as the Blu-ray digital copy codes for the movies that I buy almost every single week. I give all that away to my patrons, so that's another exclusive privilege that they have. Check that out, guys. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, like the rest of this Halloween review series leading up to Halloween 2018, you can check that shit out by clicking right over here.